You know, a good litmus test on Falcons fans if you ask them how they feel about AJ Terrell. Some people think he's still great. Some people think he's overrated. Some people just flat out think he's not even good. I'm not saying AJ Terrell is this perfect corner, but I think the reason people think he's not just this hyped up corner that he's supposed to be is because people don't see him making a lot of highlight plays. Corner inherently, just like safety, is not a highlight type of position. If you're doing your job like you're supposed to be doing, you're not going to have a lot of highlight plays. The prime examples are the Minnesota and Washington game. AJ's name was rarely called that night, and he had really good games in both of them. And yes, creating turnovers are very valuable, but however, having a corner that erases one entire side of the field is just as valuable. So let's turn on the tape and let's see why he's still, in my opinion, the top 10 corner in the game. So Justin, he's just running this simple fade, right? And this is a trick play, so like take some of this like with a grain of salt, but I can also offer some like insight as far as like DB play. When a receiver is doing all of this playing at the line, right, you can already eliminate he's running a fade, because if he's running like a real fade in a real situation that's not a trick play like right over here, you know that he's not going to sit up here at the line and just take his time, right? Because he took his time to get out of the release. But even then, let's look at AJ. He's patient. Usually the more patient person wins when you're talking about, you know, the one-on-one matchups, because he's doing his little skip release, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what you really call it for real. But he's getting up off the line. AJ is staying square, looking at his hips. Look at his eyes. You can tell his eyes are down here at the hips. The hips never lie. He's not opening up too early. And then once he declares he's going vertical, he's already over topping, because once again, if it's an actual fade, which is not not a real fade in the situation because it's a trick play, but like he was already in perfect position. Okay, he didn't open up, he stayed square, and once he declared his route, he was already over top of that, pretty much pinned him to the sideline, so he had nowhere to go. All right, so this right here, this is the very next clip. So Justin, he's running like just a regular corner route, right? Justin Simmons is the middle field safety. So you're probably thinking if it's man coverage, you also have somebody playing in the hole right here. You're probably going to take outside leverage because you have your help inside, whether it's intermediate or deep. And so even though Justin takes an inside release, which pretty much forces him to take the outside leverage, okay, he's staying in great position. He's already over top of him, which means he's not getting stacked, right? So he's still in phase too, which means he's right there with the receiver and he's got his eyes locked on. And he ran a corner route and he already had outside leverage. So you could tell by this route, he already won. Okay, he really won off of the release, okay? Because it's an outbreaking route at the top of the route and he's already in outside leverage. Now let's look at AJ. He's pressed up again, like he's a technician and press man, okay? And so this is just highlighting his physicality, right? Because Justin Jefferson, he's not the most physical receiver, but he has a lot of good play strength. And when you can knock him off of his game, or not off of his game, because he still had like 120, like, you know, he still went off. But like when you can do this to like one of the best receivers in the game, you can throw him off his timing. Look at that. Like the route's pretty much dead right there when he just throws him off that timing right there. So, and he's also covered, right? Because he lined up against him on 17 routes and he allowed one catch for like 7 yards, or was it 5? It was one of those two. But what the Vikings were doing, they were actively motioning him away from AJ so they can get a good matchup on him, because they respected him as a corner, okay? Because he's doing things like this. He's physical at the line. When Raheem Morris apparently took over the defense, or allegedly, whatever you want to say, he took over that defense, he let AJ go beat him. He wasn't finna say, no, you're not finna sit at where Justin's at and go rally. No, you get up in their face, you press them, you disrupt the timing. And that's what we need. And then the last one that I like right here, so they're going to motion him over. So this is what they're doing, okay? This is like a staple of the West Coast offense, where they're going to motion him over. He's going to run the corner route, okay? Addison's going to run this out route. And really on the front side of like a lot of West Coast plays is just smash, right? What I learned is, or what a coach taught me, like in my first year, like actually coaching people, it's like as you go up in level, it doesn't really get that more complicated, right? So what they're just doing smash drive, where they have this guy, he's running a shallow, and then he's gonna run a basic. That's pretty much it. A lot of the West Coast offense is just this front side and then an actual like a different concept backside. It's pretty much splitting the field in half basically. So as he follows him, right, he's trailing him, and he already has his outside leverage because he understands his help is inside, right? Arnold Ebiketie inside, linebackers are here inside. I think that's Jesse's already inside, so he's already on that. He can sit on his outside hip, And when he breaks to that corner, once again, that's another tough throw to make. Now, it just so happens he stumbles, out of his break or whatever, and it's an easy touchdown. But hey, this is a great rep by AJ here. So this is another great example of what I talked about earlier, where if a receiver is actually running a fade, they're not going to play at the line. Okay, so this is Jalen Hyatt right here at the top of the screen. He's pretty much isolated, right? Because they're going to motion over Malik Neighbors. It's going to create a 3-by-1 set, running back to the isolated side. AJ's pressed up per usual. So let's look at this again when I'm talking about these fade routes. He's not playing off the line. He's just getting out of there. So once he's selling that vertical route, he's already in this man turn. And a lot of playing corner or being a good corner, like most of it is just making the catch difficult or pretty much making it uncatchable. Like you don't have to get all the PBUs and interceptions, right? Because if you're making the catch hard or pretty much uncatchable, stuff like this happens where if it's a one-on-one situation, he ain't got nowhere to put that ball, because as a receiver, you're taught, like, I don't know if they teach it in high school, but they teach this thing called the red line, which is pretty much about 50, like that's a terrible line, but you split between the numbers and the sideline, okay? And when you're running down that red line, you're supposed to give your quarterback space to drop that ball down, okay? So it's about right here. So if Jalen Hyatt were to just go straight up the field, which he can't because AJ's already over top of him, like he would give Drew Lock a good window to hit that, drop it in the bucket. But since AJ's running him off that red line, he only has realistically opportunity to put it like right here down the side. He has to put a perfect pass down the sideline, and he doesn't because it's Drew Lock. You can't realistically think you're gonna make this throw every time. Like look at where it lands out of bounds right in front of the 20. He can, like, the only way he could have made this ball catchable realistically is if he put it like right here on like the down markers or whatever you want to call them. And he's just not consistently doing that. I don't think any quarterback is consistently doing that every time. You have to give your quarterback a window to hit these type of throws, and AJ didn't. He made it uncatchable. So this is what surprised me about AJ. I always thought of AJ as this press, physical man-to-man corner, but I did not know he could play off man like this, okay? So what's going to happen is they're going to run this slot fade with Terry McLaurin. They love these slot fades with him because he wins those consistently, okay? And you get these, you throw these against man-to-man, ideally cover one man because there's only a single high safety, so you can hold that safety and then just drop it down the bucket, okay? So this is what surprised me. I did not know AJ could play from depth like this. So when you're playing from depth, you don't want to really tip your hand of, what your leverage is, because say he's playing inside leverage. I think he's actually playing inside leverage right here, or he's probably more head up. But like if you're playing inside leverage, you don't want to give up your leverage until he gets like right up on you, okay? And I think AJ's smart too, because he already knows when they have Terry's number 2 receiver, they're probably going to throw this slot fade every time. And he knows it's man to man. AJ's already at a distance. He still has this distance, so he has time to close that space, right? Now this would be different if AJ let him eat up his cushion and then go, because then he's beat. As a good corner, you're playing off man, you're playing catch technique. You don't want to get your leverage or your cushion eaten up, especially in off man, because look, he maintains his cushion. It gets eaten up a little bit. It's going to happen, but you don't get it eaten up to where he's on your toes, or you're on your heels rather, right? And so he was able to turn, and people think this is a PI, or I don't know what people think this is, right? But this is a great play. And I want to tell y'all why. Because when this ball is thrown, right, the reason if it didn't get thrown is because AJ got his head around. So when you get your head around, that means you're entitled to the ball. So Terry turned around, he's looking for the ball. AJ turns around at the right time before the ball gets there. Now, if AJ's still locking eyes with Terry and then he falls over, then you can throw that flag because that's PI. But since he turned his head around, he's entitled to it. And then the last one I want to look at, this was a third down. This was like right before we got the ball back where Raheem choked on the timeouts, okay? So they're pretty much just saying we're going to go man-to-man, and Terry's going to run this dig across the screen, okay? So he's running that dig, okay? And he's playing off man. He's about 8 yards off. And I did say something about him not giving up his cushion, which he does get his cushion eaten up right here. But I think the thing that saved him is because this route snapped off right before, or the landmark of this route was right in front of him. So he was able to play this. His feet died right about here. He's flat-footed. And he's kind of grateful that that Terry snapped his right off right in front of him. So he was able to play it better. And people also complain about this being a flag when, once again, he's trying to make a play on the ball. If it was just egregious, then it's a flag, but he's making a play on the ball, okay? We're talking about his technical stuff. right? He did it was kind of sloppy right here a little bit because once again his feet did die, but he was able to stay in phase because once again the route braked off in front of him. He was able to get back into play, make a play on that ball. He missed the swipe, but it's a play on the ball, so he's not getting a flag. He's entitled to the ball, and hey, clean. So when we talk about how AJ would fit into this new defense that Jeff Ulbrich is making, and there is also some overlap from what Raheem Morris ran in LA with Jalen Ramsey, but both coordinators had one elite man-to-man corner in Sauce Gardner and Jalen Ramsey where they could put him on one side of the field and shut off the entire side. Now Jalen Ramsey was a little bit different because he did play more star in Raheem Morris's system, but I think he would be more of the Sauce Gardner type where he would be isolated backside, but I think he does travel more than Sauce did. He's shown the ability to, and he's shown he's able to actually just erase the best option on the team. So I think it's safe to say that this narrative that he's overrated is just not true. After all, he made an all-pro team and he was a Pro Bowl alternate this year, so give him a chance. But anyways, I enjoyed making this video for y'all. If y'all do enjoy this stuff, please subscribe because I'm uploading a lot of this, man. I'm telling y'all, bro. But yeah, I'll see y'all later next video. Goodbye.